reaching for something more. And this morning we talked a little bit about risks. There's a story of John and Dave. John works for Dave at his job. Dave, the supervisor, and him liked to hang out at the lake. They had water sports they enjoyed doing, especially wakeboarding. And weekend after weekend, they would hang out, they would go wakeboarding, they'd have lots of fun together. And one day after work, Dave invited John to have dinner. So they went out for dinner, and during the course of the meal, Dave said to John, "There's something different about you. What is it?" And so Dave innocently answered the question, "Well, I'm a Christian." And he shared about his faith with Dave, and all Dave did then was get very silent. They went back to work and stopped hanging out together as much. They didn't go wakeboarding. They didn't hang out. And as time went on, John was up for a promotion that required Dave's approval. And so he did not get the promotion, and so he went to Dave and asked him why he didn't get the promotion, why he didn't get his approval, what went on that evening when they had dinner. He said, "Well, I don't much like people who are limited, who say that they have a corner on the market of salvation, and so I can't hang out with you." Within 6 months, John had lost his job. John was just minding his own business, hanging out with a friend, and answering an innocent question, "Why are you different?" And this gives us a strong point. We need to remember, as we experience God, we take risks with our lives and livelihood for the sake of something more. So we look in the book of Acts, chapter 16, Paul also was just doing his own thing. Once, when we were going to the place of prayer, we were met by a slave girl who had a spirit by which he predicted the future. They were just going to the place of prayer. And there's something interesting about this as well. When you see, every time he goes to a city, he goes to the synagogue. But he doesn't here. What that tells you is that in Philippi, they didn't have enough people to have a synagogue. It required 10 Jewish men to have a synagogue. So there was less than 10 Jewish men in the town of Philippi. So, small town, but very outnumbered for Jews. And as he was just headed to this place, wherever it may be, whether it was a funeral home or somewhere else where they went to pray, they went to pray, and they were met by a slave girl who bothered them. She had a spirit by which she predicted the future. She followed them. She followed them around, and it wasn't just the case that she said once, "These men are servants of the Most High God, who are telling you the way to be saved." It was, she followed them for days and days, and annoyed them, and bothered them, and annoyed them. Kind of like the child in the back seat saying, "Can we get some ice cream? Can we get some ice cream? Can we get some ice cream? Can we get some ice cream?" Just bothering them. And it bothered him so much that he was, "Get out of her!" Because he was tired of being bothered. It wasn't that he was trying to be noticed. It wasn't that he was trying to draw people out. It was just simply he was annoyed. He was bothered. He was bothered by this slave girl who was possessed by Numa Bethuna, a divining spirit, or the spirit of the python. And if you know anything about the pantheon of gods, you would know that Bethuna, the python, if you look in Homer, Apollo hunted down that serpent, that dragon that provided for divination, and so Apollo became known as the god of divination, the god of prophecy. And so Apollo's temple would have been a major temple in Philippi and in the area. And so the thing that Paul, whether he knew it or not, he probably did, was he bugged a lot of people when he knew about that spirit. Because it was a case of the people who owned, the owners of the slave, who was making lots of money, but also they were highly respected for that reason, because she was then of Apollo. She belonged to Apollo, and they were very well But was Paul thinking about that? No, he was just thinking, I'm being annoyed right now and I'd like to stop. A risk to be painful. And for Paul and Silas it was. Because they trumped up charges against them. These high-standing people in the community came and made up a story, and they were believed because they were high-standing people of the community. Because they had this slave girl. Because they were connected to the temple of Apollo. They believed them, even though they made up a story. So what it resulted was that the crowd attacked Paul and Silas. And the thing we also see in this passage is that we know that there were 4 people in this group. We know that there was Paul. We know that there was Silas. We know there was Timothy. And we know that there was Luke. Once when we were going to the place of prayer.